Okay, my name is Danny Tirza. I'm a retired colonel from the Israeli army. I've spent 30 years in the army. Most of this time I was commander in combat units, most of the time at the paratroopers, but in the end of 1993 I was called to be the head of Rainbow Operation Administration. I didn't know what it is. So I came to the chief of staff and I asked him, what do you want me to do? And he said to me, well, there is something going on there in Oslo between the Israelis and the Palestinians. I want you to be there. Take all the security concerns from the ground and be part of the Israeli delegation. So in a very short period, I've established a strategic planning bench in the central command of the IDF, and I took part in all the negotiations with the Palestinians, with Daniel, from 1994 till 2007. In January 2007, I've retired from the Army and the Ministry of Defense. I finished my PhD, and then I was called back to Prime Minister office when we had the Annapolis process negotiations in 2008, 2009. Then I retired from all of it. Today I'm a free man. I run my own company, but still, if the government needs me, they know how to call me. Well, in this job I had to do two things. In one hand, I had to be there in the negotiation representing the security concerns, but in the other hand, I had to prepare the ground for the future peace that nobody knew how it will be, like changing all the net of the roads in the West Bank, because till that time all the main roads were crossing the Palestinian towns. Now we had to construct new roads that will take the Israelis to their houses without crossing Palestinian urban areas. I had to take all the military camps out from the Palestinian towns to the open space. I had to build all the homeland security infrastructure in the West Bank. So it was a very interesting job, and I did it for 14 years. In this job I had to meet a lot of times with Yasser Arafat, the Palestinian leader. Well, the first meetings were very hard for me because I chased him all over the area. I knew how bloody his hands were. Now I had to meet with him, shake his hand. You know, the Arabs, when they meet each other, they used to kiss each other, even man to man. I came with straight hand, no kissing, but working together. And really I felt, when people says that you make peace with your enemies, not with your friends. Well, Yasser Arafat used to call me Abu Kharita. Abu in Arabic is father, Kharita is map. So Abu Kharita is the father of map, because I was the territorial expert in the negotiations. I drew all the maps all over these years. So he called me Abu Kharita, the father of maps. But it's a joke, because there is another word that we're in Arabic that we're using it a lot in Hebrew too. Kharta. Kharita is map. Kharta is bullshit. Well, today I'll take you for a very short tour in Jerusalem, trying to share with you some of the dilemmas that I had to face when I got the mission from the Israeli government to design and build the security fence. But that was in 2002. I cannot start the story of the security fence in 2002, because we have to recognize that there are two different narratives about the past. We have our story, that we really believe that this is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But the Palestinians have another narrative. And if we don't recognize their narrative, we cannot understand what this conflict is about. Well, our story is very simple. We, the Jews, are the people that God promised us this land. He didn't promise it to any Arab. There were no Arabs at that time at that land. We were living here. We were thrown away by force from our land 2,000 years ago. And now we came back to rebuild our nation on our land. We call it that time, the people without land are coming back to the land without people. Because really in the end of the 19th century, there were no many Arabs in that land too. There were a lot more Arabs than Jews, but we wanted to build here a democratic state. In every democratic state, there are some minorities, so we thought that the Arabs will be an equal minority inside Israel. That's what we thought, but as you know, the Arabs didn't like that idea at all. So in 1947, the UN General Assembly took decision to have two states. One state for the Jews, that's Israel, and one state for the Arabs. The Arabs didn't define themselves as Palestinian yet. I'm talking about 29th of November 1947, and the Arabs didn't define themselves as Palestinian yet. Well, we didn't like the decision. We thought that the Arabs have already 21 states. Why they need another one? And this is the only place on earth the Jews can have their own state. So we didn't like that decision, but we accepted. The Arabs didn't. So in 14th of May 1948, when the British mandate went away and Israel was established here, 7 Arab countries came in with their armies trying to trying to erase Israel that was just born from the map. Well, it was a very tough war. We lost 1% of our population at that war. But thanks God, in the end we succeeded and we won it, and Israel was built as you can see today. In 1967, Egypt, Syria and Jordan tried again what they called that time, to throw the Jews to the Mediterranean. Well, thanks God, we succeeded and we won that war too. And in 6 days, Israel occupied the West Bank. 6 days, Israel occupied the West Bank, the Golan Heights, and Sinai deserts. But we didn't annex these lands to Israel. We spare it to the future. Do we really believe that there will come a day and we... Okay, that's better. So I said that after the 67 war, Israel didn't annex those lands to Israel. We spare it to the future. Do we really believe that there will come a day and we can have peace agreement with our neighbors? This is our story, very simple one. But the Palestinians have another narrative. According to the Palestinians, the Jews are not a nation. It's only a religion. And therefore the Jews have no right for their own state. Because there is no state for any religion around the globe. Even the Vatican is not the state of the Christians, it's the state of the administration of the Pope. So as they see it, the Jews that were spread along the world had a lot of money. So they lent money to the Turkish Sultan and to the German Empire that they will let them build here a colony. And they are looking above Israel as part of the colonialism of the 19th century. Well, as the colonialism is gone all over the world, most of the Arabs believe that Israel will vanish from the area too. It will take a time, but in Arabic there is a word sabr. Sabr means patience, but a lot of patience. So they said, we have sabr, we will wait. The conditions here are too tough, the Jews are too spoiled, it will take a time and the Jews will go away. So, but there are a lot of other Arabs that says, let's help them go away. So according to the Palestinians, the Jews came here from all over the world, trying to take the Palestinian lands, the Palestinian properties, and in 1948, when the British mandate went away, the Jews tried to get rid from the Arabs that were living here, and that's what started the refugees problem. Well, according to the Palestinians, in 1948, in 1967, Israel tried to enlarge a border. So Israel occupied the West Bank, the Golan Heights, and Sinai deserts. Smaller. So as they are living under the illegal occupation of Israel, they have all the rights to resist that occupation in any way. So what we call terror attacks, they call it freedom fight. Well, if you have two different narratives, you cannot match them, because narrative is your belief. You can compromise about actual things, but you cannot compromise about your beliefs. And therefore we had here 100 years of armed conflict between the sides. That was still 1993. In 1993, something new came in. There were some unofficial Israelis and some unofficial Palestinians that sat together in Oslo, Norway. And they said to each other, we recognize that you have a different narrative above the past. Above the past. But let's see if we can find a way for the future, if we can find a way to live here together, to raise children here together. And when they sat together, they found that there is a way. And that's what started the Oslo peace process. Well, we call it that time the tunnel to peace. There is the great light of the peace in the end, but you have to cross the darkness of the process to get there. Well, as you probably know, in this process, a lot of Israelis lost their life, a lot of blood was spilled, but I don't want to get to the details. I want to jump to summer 2000. In summer 2000, we were in Camp David, Maryland, we together, and in the peace submission that President Clinton held there. We were 16 Israelis, head by our Prime Minister at that time, Ehud Barak, and Yamina Bakikar Smola. And the Palestinians, they were 16, head by their leader Yasser Arafat, and there was a big American delegation head by President Clinton. Just imagine that President Clinton left his office for 2 weeks and he was with us there on the mountain, though he really believed that we are going to get out from this peace submission with an agreement in our hands. Well, we, the technical staff, worked in a very good environment. Worked on the wording, worked on the mapping. Of course, there were some gaps between the sides, but that's part of negotiation. That was still the last evening. In the last evening, President Clinton held nice dinner. He stand and said nice words about peace. And then Prime Minister Ehud Barak stand and said to Yasser Arafat, I'm willing to give you almost everything. When he said almost everything at that time, he talked about 94% of the West Bank, all Gaza Strip, large areas inside Jerusalem, and even the Temple Mountain. But he said to Yasser Arafat, I need one thing from you, that you will sign that this agreement is the end of the conflict between our two people. Otherwise, I cannot give you anything. Because if I'll give you what I can today, and tomorrow you will come with new claims, what I'll do tomorrow? Well, Yasser Arafat was very angry. He left the dinner, he went to his cabin. 3 hours later, he came to President Clinton, and he said to President Clinton, I'm the leader of the Palestinian people. I'm not the leader of the great Arab nation. And therefore, I cannot sign the disagreement is the end of the conflict. And everything crashed down in that moment. The next morning, President Clinton came out to the press. He blamed Yasser Arafat that he cheated him all the way, that he has no courage to come to real agreement with Israel, and other bad words. But it didn't help. In the following weeks, the Americans tried to bridge between the sides, but just 6 weeks later, the Palestinians started a terror attack against Israel that was prepared long time before that. And in one day, all the life in Israel have been changed. Well, 2000 was the year that everyone around the globe expected that something new will happen. Especially here in the Holy Land, we expected to have more than 3 million pilgrims and tourists from all over the world. The economical level was very high. Relations between Jews and Arabs, I'm talking about people to people, were very good. We thought that peace is just behind the door. And as the expectations were so high, the disappointment was just the same. It was the day before Rosh Hashanah, the first day according to the Jewish calendar, and the head of the opposition of Israel at that time, Ariel Sharon, wanted to show everyone that we are not giving up the Temple Mountain. So he wanted to visit there. According to the status quo, Jews are allowed to visit the Temple Mountain. They are not allowed to pray there, but they are allowed to visit there. So he just visited the Temple Mountain, and the Palestinians use it as a trigger to start this terror attack? Well, at first they were shooting from their areas toward Jewish neighborhoods in Jerusalem. Then they were sending terrorists, first with cocktail bottles and hand grenades, then putting bombs wherever they can, shooting in the streets, the explosive cars, and in the end, the suicide bombers. Well, of course, all these tourists and pilgrims canceled the tour to Israel. But imagine what happened to the Israelis. Well, I can tell you about myself. I was afraid to send my daughter to a school in Jerusalem after 17 public buses were blown up by terrorists. Who will be the crazy man to visit the famous Machne Yehuda market of Jerusalem after 15 terror attacks there? Jaffa Street of Jerusalem, about 1 mile long, and we had there 21 terror attacks. The big discotheque in Tel Aviv, 1 suicide bomber, 23 youngers were murdered, and 150 were wounded. All over the country, just name a place, and there was a terror attack there. The people in Israel, they asked the government, separate us from them. We don't want to see them. We don't want them to come to Israel for any reason. Let them live their own life in the West Bank. Let us live our own life in Israel. But the government of Israel didn't want to build any barrier on the ground. Not in 2000, not in 2001, and even not in 2002. When we'll come back to the bus, I'll tell you why. But let's go down here and see where everything have started.